My car was in her driveway on a Tuesday at 11:47 p.m. I know the exact time because I have the screenshot. I know whose driveway because I have the GPS ping. I know why it was there because 3 days later my mother-in-law told me herself, with her chin up and her voice steady the way people talk when they've decided they're doing you a favor. She said she took it to keep me from leaving. I am a licensed private investigator and a certified paralegal. I have spent 11 years helping people document the things that are done to them. I know what evidence looks like. I know what theft looks like. And I know what control looks like when someone has been practicing it so long they've stopped calling it by its name. This is the story of a car, a deed, a GPS record, and a father who said 7 words that changed the architecture of everything. Welcome back to Family Revenge Stories New, the channel where quiet people keep the receipts and family learns that documentation is a love language. If stories about paperwork, patience, and the particular satisfaction of watching someone handed exactly what they built, drop a comment and subscribe. You're in the right place. I grew up understanding that things get written down. My father worked in title insurance for 31 years. He sat at a desk covered in surveys and legal descriptions and chain of title reports, and when I was small and visiting him after school, he would show me what a deed looked like, the grantor, the grantee, the legal description, the notary seal. He used to say, "The world runs on paper, baby, and the paper doesn't lie." I believed him. I still do. I became a paralegal at 23, working family law cases, and then I cross-trained into investigative support, serving papers, gathering evidence, helping attorneys build the scaffolding that held cases upright. 6 years in, I got my PI license. I've documented affairs, hidden assets, insurance fraud, and once, a grandmother who was stealing from her own grandchildren's college fund and calling it borrowed. I have a particular tolerance for what people will do when they believe they won't be caught. My husband Marcus and I met at a mutual friend's backyard dinner in September, almost 8 years ago. He was sitting at the end of the table trying to get a corkscrew to work on a bottle of Malbec, and I reached over without asking and opened it in about 4 seconds, and he looked at me like I had performed surgery. We were engaged 13 months later. Marcus is good. Genuinely good, not in the performed way, the real way. He coaches youth soccer on Saturday mornings. He remembers what food his friends' kids are allergic to. He calls his mother every Sunday without fail, and he has always called her every Sunday, and I want you to understand that I knew this about him and I loved him anyway because I thought I understood what it meant. I did not fully understand what it meant. His mother, Diane, is a woman who has organized her entire life around the management of other people's proximity to her son. She doesn't yell. She doesn't make scenes. She offers and suggests and worries and provides, and every single offering comes with a thread attached that you don't notice until you try to walk away. The thread tightens. I noticed the thread early. I cataloged it the way I catalog everything, mentally, methodically, without making a production of it. The way she introduced me at family events as Marcus's friend, for 14 months after we were engaged. The way she would rearrange plans we'd already made by calling Marcus first. The way she once told me with genuine warmth in her voice that she worried I worked too hard, and maybe I should let Marcus carry more. Meaning I understood, let Marcus be the one who leaves the house with a purpose every day. I stayed calm. Calm is not the same thing as weak. My family had confused the two for years. Diane had confused them for the entirety of our acquaintance. I let the thread accumulate. I kept my files neat. The car situation started small, the way it always does. Marcus and I had one car, a 2019 Subaru Forester, registered in my name, purchased with money I had earned before we were married. I want to be precise about that. My name, my money, my car. These are not morally complex facts. We had been discussing getting a second vehicle, but we lived 4 blocks from my office and Marcus worked from home 3 days a week, so the logistics had never been urgent enough to resolve. I drove the Forester. When Marcus needed it, we coordinated. It was fine. In February, the 14th specifically, which is a date I find instructive, Diane called Marcus to say she needed help moving some things from her house to her sister's storage unit across town. She asked if she could borrow the car. Marcus asked me. I said of course, and I handed over my keys that Saturday morning with a smile, And Diane thanked me with the particular warmth she reserved for moments when she was receiving something. The car came back Sunday evening. That was expected. That was fine. The second time she asked directly called my cell, which she had never done before. Her water heater had failed, she had a plumber coming. She needed to get to the hardware store before he arrived. Could she borrow the Forester just for the morning? I said yes. I am telling you about these 2 times because I need you to understand that I said yes and I was kind about it, and both times she kept the car a minimum of 4 hours longer than she said she would without calling to let me know. The third time she did not ask. I noticed the car was gone on a Tuesday evening in March. I had come home from a site visit. I'd been photographing a property for a civil case, and I walked into our parking spot and the Forester was not there. Marcus wasn't home. I texted him. He didn't know. The GPS tracker, which I had installed 8 months earlier because a client's car had been stolen from a similar unattended lot and I'd started keeping one in my own vehicle as standard professional practice, showed the Forester sitting in Diane's driveway. It had been there since 4:12 that afternoon. I took the screenshot at 11:47 p.m. Marcus called his mother. She said she'd needed to run some errands and hadn't wanted to bother me. She said she'd return it in the morning. Her voice, Marcus told me later, had been entirely unbothered. I sat on our couch with my phone in my hand and my hands very still in my lap, and I looked at the screenshot. Then I opened a new folder in my cloud storage. I labeled it with the date. The car came back the next morning. Diane came with it. She handed me the keys at the front door, looked me in the eyes and said, "I hope you didn't worry. I knew you didn't need it." I looked at her for 1 beat longer than was comfortable. "Let me know next time," I said. She smiled. "Of course," she said. There was no next time request. There was a 4th time. It was a Saturday 3 weeks later, and the car simply wasn't in the spot when I went to leave for the grocery store. Gone since, according to the GPS, 8:17 that morning. I called Diane. She answered on the second ring. She said Marcus had told her she could use it. Marcus had not told her she could use it. I sat in our kitchen with a mug of coffee I had stopped drinking, and I thought about what kind of woman borrows her daughter-in-law's car and lies about authorization and feels entirely comfortable doing so. I thought about what kind of structure that requires, what the woman must have concluded about her own position and my position and the distance between them. I opened the folder in my cloud storage. I added the new GPS screenshot. I added a note with the time of the phone call, her exact words, and Marcus's confirmation that he had said no such thing. My father used to say, "You don't need to confront a lie. You just need to record it." 3 days after the 4th incident, Marcus and I sat at our kitchen table and had the kind of conversation that feels very quiet but is actually very loud. He called his mother. On speakerphone. He told her that the car was mine, that borrowing it without asking wasn't acceptable, and that going forward she needed to contact me directly if she needed help with transportation. Diane was quiet for exactly 4 seconds. Then she said, "I was just trying to help this family." Then she said, "I didn't think Nora would mind. She's always so busy with work." Then she said, "I never thought my own son would speak to me this way over a car." Marcus held the line. He repeated the boundary. He was loving and firm in the way I had always known he could be when he chose to be, and I watched him from across the table and felt something that was close to relief. That should have been the end. I want to be honest with you about what I thought at the time. I thought it was over. 2 weeks later, I came downstairs on a Thursday morning to find the Forester was gone. The GPS showed it at Diane's house. It had been there since 10:48 p.m. the night before, while Marcus and I were sleeping. She had a spare key. She had made a copy. I don't know when, but I know when she used it because I have the timestamp. I went upstairs and woke Marcus. I showed him my phone. I watched his face go through several stages in about 15 seconds. Then I went back downstairs and made coffee because there was nothing to do at 6:15 in the morning but wait, and I am very good at waiting. My father called at 7 a.m. We spoke every Thursday morning, a habit from when I was in college. I told him what had happened in plain chronological terms. I did not editorialize. I read him the timestamps. There was a silence on his end. Then he said, "Get in the car. I'm coming. This ends tonight." He was 3 hours away. He arrived at 4:30 p.m. My father, Harold, is 67 years old. He has white hair and reading glasses he keeps on a chain, and he has never, in my entire life, raised his voice at anyone. He spent 31 years in title insurance, and he understands, in the cellular way that professionals come to understand things, that the person who holds the paper holds the position. He walked in our door, hugged Marcus, and sat down at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and a pen. He asked me to tell him everything from the beginning. I told him. He wrote things down in his precise, unhurried handwriting. When I was finished, he took off his reading glasses and set them on the table. "What does she think is happening here?" he asked. "She thinks she's entitled," I said. "No." He picked up the glasses again. "She thinks you don't own anything. She thinks everything in this family circulates through her. The car isn't the point. The car is just where she decided to make the argument visible." I looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at his hands. My father said, "We're going to make a counter-argument. If you have ever watched someone take something that belongs to you and then look at you with complete serenity, as if the taking is so natural it required no justification, then you already know the particular geography of where this story is going. Stick with me. The paperwork is about to arrive." My father spent 2 hours that evening on his laptop at our kitchen table. He had brought in a manila folder the following: a copy of the original vehicle title showing my name as sole owner, a printed copy of the state statute defining unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, a printed copy of the statute defining theft by taking, and a one-page letter he had drafted on the drive up addressed to Diane from me. The letter was 4 paragraphs. The first paragraph documented every unauthorized use of the vehicle, with dates, times, and GPS evidence referenced. The second paragraph stated that a spare key had been made and used without permission, constituting unauthorized access to private property. The third paragraph stated that if the vehicle was not returned within 6 hours and all copies of any duplicate keys surrendered within 24 hours, I would be filing a police report for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. The fourth paragraph contained one sentence: "This letter will be retained as part of the permanent record of this matter." Marcus read it. He read it twice. He set it down and looked at his hands again, and then he looked at my father. "She's going to say I'm destroying the family," he said. My father folded his hands on the table. "She is going to say that. That is true. She is also going to return the car." We drove to Diane's house at 7:15 that evening. My father drove. He parked across the street and he looked at Marcus and he said, "You two go in. I'll be right here." Marcus knocked. Diane opened the door in the exact expression of surprise that was not surprise, the expression of someone who was expecting this and had decided on a performance. "Nora," she said. "Not hello. Not come in. We need the car, Diane," I said. "And we need the spare key." She looked at Marcus. "You're letting her speak for you now?" Marcus said, "She's my wife. She's speaking for both of us." Diane's expression went through 3 changes in about 4 seconds. Then she stepped back and let us in. What followed was 40 minutes that I will tell you about in the order they happened because the order matters. First, she offered us tea. Second, when we declined, she sat down and explained that she had only been trying to help, and that she had raised Marcus to share, and that she couldn't understand why everything had become so legal. I let her finish. Then I put the letter on her coffee table. She read it. Her hands, I noticed, were very still. "You're threatening to call the police," she said. "On your own family." "I'm documenting the unauthorized use of my vehicle," I said, "and requesting its return. What you do with that information is up to you." Her chin came up. "Marcus." "Just his name. An invocation," Marcus said. "Mom, the key." Diane stood up. She went to the kitchen. She came back with my car key on a purple lanyard and put it on the table next to the letter. She did not put it in my hand. "I want you to know," she said, looking at me, "that I took that car because I was trying to show you something. I waited. I wanted you to know what it felt like to need something and not have it. The way I feel. The way this family has felt since you came into it and started." She stopped. Reconsidered. Started again. I wanted you to understand that things in a family are shared. They circulate. They're not yours. I picked up the key off the table. I put it in my pocket. The title says otherwise, I said. I picked up the letter. I folded it. I put it in my bag. You'll receive a copy of this by certified mail as well, I said. Have a good evening, Diane. She said one more thing as we were leaving. She said it to Marcus, not to me. She said, "You're going to regret choosing her over your own mother." Marcus held the door open for me. He let it close behind us. He didn't answer her. My father was leaning against his car across the street with his arms crossed and his reading glasses pushed up on his head. When we came out with my keys, he looked at the keys, looked at us, and nodded once. He drove us to dinner. He ordered the salmon. He did not bring up what had happened at Diane's house once. At the end of the meal, he reached into his jacket pocket and slid something across the table to me. It was a business card for a locksmith he used. "Change your locks tomorrow," he said. "Both of you. Yours at home, the car, everything." He picked up the check. The letter went out via certified mail the next morning. Marcus's aunt, his mother's sister Carol, called him 3 days later and told him that Diane had been devastated and that the family was very concerned. Carol used the word legal twice as if it were a synonym for cruel. She said Diane had cried. Marcus listened. He said, "I understand she's upset. Nora's car is home and we've handled it." Carol said, "It was just a car." Marcus said, "Yes, it was. It was Nora's car." He hung up and looked at me across the room. I was at my desk logging case notes for a client. I did not look up immediately. When I did, his expression was the expression of a man who has said the true thing out loud and is still a little surprised by how clean it felt. I want to be precise about what happened in the subsequent weeks because precision is the whole point. Diane called Marcus every Sunday as usual. He answered as usual. The calls were shorter. She did not mention the car, the letter, or the certified mail. She mentioned the weather. She mentioned his cousin's new baby. She mentioned a television program she'd been watching. In April, she sent me a card. A store-bought card, the kind with flowers on the front. Inside it said, "I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. I love my son and I love his family." I photographed it and added it to the folder. Then I put it in the junk drawer. 6 weeks after the incident, Marcus and I bought a second car. A used 2021 Honda CR-V, registered in both our names, because we are a family and families share things that they have agreed to share. I wrote the check. I signed the paperwork. The dealer notarized the title. My father framed the GPS screenshot. He said he was joking. He did not appear to be joking. Here is what I want to tell you about Diane. She is not a cartoon. She is a woman who raised a son alone after a difficult divorce, and she poured everything into that role, and she built her sense of self around her centrality to his life. And at some point the love and the control became the same thing in her mind, and she stopped being able to tell them apart. I understand this. I even have, in a very specific and non-sentimental way, some compassion for it. But understanding someone's architecture is not the same as agreeing to live inside it. What she did was theft. Technically, legally, under the statutes my father printed out, it was unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, which carries real consequences in most jurisdictions, and she knows that now because she has a certified letter in her possession that cites the specific code section. She will never be able to say she wasn't told. She thought she was showing me something about the family I had married into. She thought she was demonstrating a principle, that what's mine circulates to her, by right of her position. She showed me something, it's true, but not what she intended. What she showed me was that she had never, in 8 years, once considered that I might be keeping records. The Forester sits in our parking spot. The CR-V sits next to it. Both locks were rekeyed by my father's locksmith the morning after we got the car back. $180, and I have the receipt. Marcus and Diane have continued their Sunday calls. They are, in some ways, easier since March. Less performance on both sides. Less management. She does not ask to borrow anything from us anymore. I noticed this. I don't mention it. What I did with the GPS folder was simpler than you might expect. Kept it. I added Carol's call to the log, noted the date and the substance. I added the card Diane sent. Then I closed the folder and moved it to an archive. I did not print it and mail it to relatives. I did not post it anywhere. I did not have a conversation with Diane about it where I laid out the timeline and watched her react. It exists. She knows it exists. That is sufficient. My father got back in his car the morning after dinner and drove 3 hours home. Before he left, he stood in our driveway for a moment and looked at the forester. He is the kind of man who says a lot in very few words, and he says even more in the pauses between them. You did everything right, he said. The paperwork. The patience. All of it. I said. You drove 3 hours. He said. You're my kid. He hugged me. He got in his car. He drove away. I stood in the driveway for a while after he left, in the particular quiet of a morning when something that needed to be finished has been finished. The forester was behind me. The sun was coming up over the houses across the street. My hands were still. There is a line my father used to say not often but at the moments that required it, and it is this: the paper doesn't lie and the person who kept the paper doesn't have to. I didn't say anything to Diane that evening that wasn't already in the documents. I didn't accuse her of anything I couldn't timestamp. I didn't ask her to understand what she'd done, because understanding isn't the point. The point is the record. The point is the certified letter in her possession with the code section printed clearly, and the GPS data cited and my name on it, as the sole owner of a 2019 Subaru Forester. VIN documented, title on file. The point is that she knows and I know she knows, and every Sunday when Marcus calls her and she answers, she is also answering the letter. That is what my profession taught me. Not how to fight. How to make the truth so plain it does the work on its own, without you having to raise your voice once. She called it control. Call it evidence. If any part of this reminded you that the most powerful thing you can do when someone tries to make you feel like you own nothing is to find the title and photograph it, then take that with you. Update what needs updating. Change what needs changing. And if you know someone who has confused your patience for permission, know this. It is never too late to send the certified letter. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.